Hello, everybody, and welcome to Edusations. Today, we have somebody from a friend in the north, Shane. Shane, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the viewers?
Hey everybody, my name's Shane. I am a teacher in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I'm also a podcaster, the Ed Podcast. I know Phil's mentioned it on his Twitter feed a few times. Thank you. And I teach, currently I teach computers, drama, and film studies. I also came off of 12 years of teaching English as well. And that's mostly junior high. So that's me.
So what made you? Have you always been interested in like drama and sort of like filming type things, or has that kind of been something that's emerged over time?
Well, the drama thing, I never took any drama in high school or
Okay.
junior high, but I was in the drama club because I liked it. So then I went to university to be a computer science major, a computer programmer, naturally, and
Okay.
found that I was terrible at it. And then switched over to the things that I found that I was pretty good at and also enjoyed, which was English and drama. So yeah, that's kind of how that happened. And now I'm at a school where we've got a decent drama program, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And film kind of happened sort of by accident. It happened right around the time one of my buddies got a digital 8 camera way back in the day. And yeah, that was right after I graduated. So he said, hey, we should film ourselves mountain biking. So we started making mountain biking movies, and then I just got bit by the bug, and one thing leads to another, and here I am. So
You're helping your students learn how to film too. What's that like having students film as a major part of the class? Like my school doesn't have a filming course, so I'm
Right.
very interested in this.
Well, I only have two rules when it comes to filming, and that is they can't film on school property and they can't do it during school time. So the filming part actually happens completely outside of class.
Okay.
Other than we do these in high school, we do these small exercises that'll take like a class and a half, where I'll say, okay, you need to go out and shoot something with no dialogue, and it has to demonstrate the connection between a person and somebody else. And so, they'll do that in like, a class and a half, basically, where they'll shoot and edit. But other than that, yeah, it's all outside of class time, because I mean, nothing takes an audience more out of a moment in a film than when they can recognize a location and say, oh yeah, that's that. Or like, if for my junior highs, if they film in the school, we show the films in the school. So, I mean, what a weird situation that is, right? To be, sitting in the school and think, wait a minute, this is where the film's taking place. It just kind of throws you off, right? So I honestly, I don't see a lot of what goes on. Oh, very occasionally I will go and visit a set.
Okay.
If there's anything in particular they need, like depending if there's a place that's just, where they absolutely need to have an adult there, like I hesitate to use that word because my kids are pretty responsible, but a teacher or whatever there to supervise it, I will go. But that's been only a handful of times over the past, I guess, 8 years that I've been doing this. So
I've heard you say on your podcast before that you like to, teach your students enough to be dangerous. Why don't you explain what goes into that? I love that phrase. I've definitely stolen it this past year.
Oh, right on. Well, it's the idea that, I mean, you can send your kids into a task with no skills and no necessary tools, and it'll be a disaster. But if you give them what they need to basically go in there and make a go of it, then I consider that, now you're dangerous, right? It gives them enough, like, I taught my kids, did a lot of Photoshop this year with my students.
Okay.
And so rather than just say, here's Photoshop, go. And I mean, that'll work for maybe 2 out of my 30 kids. You teach them the basic tools of, how to move things around, how to cut things out, and how to, maybe twiddle some of the knobs and whatever. You show them where some of the tools are, but that's enough that then they can go in and if you can tweak their interest enough, if they're curious enough, they now are comfortable enough in the environment that they can go deeper in on their own and say, well, if I can do this, then why can't I do this? Maybe I can. And they'll, they can go look up a YouTube video, or they can certainly ask a neighbor, ask me. Then they become lethal. So
do you find that your students feel more empowered? It sounds like you're giving them so much freedom to kind of like go out and explore. Are they like embracing that head on, or?
They are to some extent, and I mean, I'll cop to it. Sometimes I give them a little too much freedom, and they just kind of sit there like, whoa, what do I do? So, I mean, yeah, exactly. I've erred on that side of things before. I'm like, oh, that was wrong. Nope, that was bad. You kick them off in the pool, and then you're like, nope, oh, you're drowning. Oh, shoot, nope, didn't do a good enough job. But I mean,
what happened here? Oh,
yeah, exactly. You can do it. No. But I mean, I'm finding where that point is, and it's different for every student, right? I mean, I have one student this year, kind of going back to the Photoshop thing, where she spent a couple days on it, with those basic tools, and came to me and said, Mr. Lawrence, I don't think I want to do this anymore. It's too hard. I said, well, here, just go try this one tutorial. And then, if you don't like it, then sure, go and try something else. And then it got to the point where she was just unstoppable. And like every day, then she'd come and say, Mr. Lawrence, give me something to do in Photoshop.
That's awesome.
Okay. Can you, replace the sky in one photo with another one and stuff like, and then she's like, oh yeah, easy. No problem. Like just, bang, bang, bang. So
jump change.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I forget what the question was. Oh yes, right. Giving kids the freedom. Yeah. So I love giving kids freedom, but I mean, I'm still learning how to balance that and make sure that I'm not just sending them off into the wilderness without the necessary tools, getting back to the idea of being dangerous.
Don't you feel like sometimes we walk like a tough line there too? Because, we went to school and even at the beginning of teaching, in the 90s and 2000s, it was still very much the sense of, there is one way to do this. And then over like the last 10 years, it's been this explosion of freedom. And we're still trying to figure out like, how do we give them that freedom they need and they can learn from, but also, make sure that, I don't know, make sure things don't like burn in flames and stuff like that.
Right. Well, they have the tools they need to actually succeed.
Right.
And I mean, I think it's the kind of thing I always fall back on is the idea when you need any sort of institutional change, you've got to push really hard because you're moving a really big thing.
Yeah.
The fact is you actually have to put in more effort than is actually required for the size of the change. Like you got to push really hard to swing that pendulum. But the problem is, of course, then we wind up swinging it too far in one direction. And so, now it's like, God help you if you utter the word, worksheets on Twitter, right? Or anywhere like,
you're done before if you do that. Teachers pay teachers.
Yeah, exactly. No, so there's certain things like, I was talking to Brian Aspinall a couple days ago. Actually, his episode just went out. And he's big into coding and stuff, and talking about all these really cool things he does with his kids, and so many different solutions and all that sort of kind of buzzwordy stuff. And I said, well, how do you make sure that that's going to work? And he said, I spend the first month and a half just doing coding, and we all do the same thing. So here's a task, do this now. Here's another task, do this now. So I mean, you have to spend that time. You can't just be full on freedom because they're not going to know what to do with themselves.
Exactly.
Right? You have to spend that time. Honestly, there's time where you have to repeat and, drill and kill, that kind of stuff. It has to happen sometimes, because if you don't, I mean, but for the students who are really self-motivated, you're going to have a lot of kids that are just going to flounder. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation among like social studies teachers on Twitter about, note taking versus not note taking. And I always tell them, I'm kind of a believer that before you go bake a cake, it might be helpful to know what the recepe is. Otherwise, you'll do what I did one time and forget to put eggs in, and then it's just a mess afterwards. Yikes. So yeah, like they do need some of that structure in place. They need to be dangerous before you go and set them free, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So one of the cool things that you've spoken about on your podcast and that you've spoken about on Twitter and elsewhere too is that at the end of making your students dangerous, there's a film festival near the end of the year. What goes into creating that? What are some of the products you've seen out of there that like, holy cow, this is amazing, and some that you're like, let's try again next time?
Well, I get both of those every year. I mean, I'll focus on my high school one because that's sort of the big leagues. Briefly, my junior high, we do my grade 8s. We have a different theme every year based on a genre usually. And then my grade 9s, they do music videos, and we throw them all together in a show, and we do a festival in the evening at the school, which is really cool. But the big sort of carrot that I put out for high school is that we actually rent out the Cineplex. I don't know if you have Cineplex, AMC, maybe, whatever.
Yeah.
There you go. So we rent out a movie theater.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a blast. And so we put out like a red carpet, and there's like the Lido where they can go take pictures and all this kind of stuff. And
do they dress to the nines for it too?
Absolutely. That's required.
Excellent.
Yeah. I tell them on nearly day one, I'm like, it's a red carpet. It's a movie premiere. You dress up nice. And a lot of the guys are like, all I have are jeans. As long as they're not ripped, man. But I mean, it's great. You got kids coming in like tuxedos, and I mean, the girls I dare say they have a little more fashion sense at this point in their life. And so they get all dressed up in like sparkly gown things and high heels and the whole bit. It's fantastic. And, I get a couple kids to come and do photography, and yeah, it's a blast. And as far as products go, like, I mean, this year was a great year, like a really great year for my kids. I got, there's one student, she's amazing. She decided she was going to do a film. she heard another one of her classmates say, I just want to do a film like where this one image is like this person in a bathtub, like with all their clothes on. And she said, well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And then she got thinking about it and said, so how would I make that work? And so she made this fantastic short little like sort of thriller where this guy breaks in, you see this girl in a bathtub and it's all full of blood. And then this guy breaks in and she has to defend herself. And it's just brilliant. It's so well done. Just really awesome.
Wow.
I mean, her parents weren't so happy because, she was up filming till 2 a.m. and she filled her parents' bathtub full of blood and then spilled it all over the place. But it was pretty fun.
Just food coloring, man.
Yeah, it was. It took us. That was, oh man. And like, talk about great, just moments where you're like, I am a teacher and this is my job. Like, we spent like, the whole class one day just like, okay, how do we fill a bathtub with blood? What are we gonna do? What are the options? And like testing all these different options to like stain water so it doesn't stain skin. And oh man,
it's would be proud, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. I mean, he had the benefit of being black and white, so he just used chocolate syrup, but
there you go. Yeah.
He had color. So anyway, but no, so, I mean, all the products were great. And yeah, I mean, every year, not in my high school, but boy, some of my junior high stuff, I had a couple this year that are just like, but at the same time, that's great for the kids because a lot of time they go and thinking, this is great. This is awesome. But you put it in an audience context.
Yeah.
And sit there, and it's not like I want them to be, horrified, but at the same time, it's like, you're learning because they sit there and they see the audience reaction. They see it kind of in a new light. It's kind of like when you watch or a movie with your parents.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, I forgot how violent this was. Oh, I forgot about the swearing. Right. Yeah. So it's one of those things where you get a fresh set of eyes. And so they sit there and go, oh, like that. Right. And so, what I tell them is like, yeah, of course you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes next year and the year after that and the year after that, every time you make a movie. But you get to learn. And that's, if you don't think you're making mistakes, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
So do you frequently have students who have maybe like made one of those like movies that then come back the next year or a year after that and they've really grown and then they've been one of those like really solid ones?
Oh yeah. 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 I mean, I get kids that, they grow and they start in grade 8. And I mean, the films are okay. And then grade 9. And then like, by the time we put them into grade 10 or 11, I mean, they're working on their 4th film. By the time they graduate, their 5th film. And I mean, we're putting some pretty pro gear in their hands too. And their groups are way bigger. Like when they start in grade 8 and 9, they're three people and that's it. By the time they get up to high school, some of the groups are getting like 15, 20. Wow. So yeah, it's pretty huge. I mean, it's not one course, mind you. It's multiple courses that combine to create those groups. So yeah, it's a blast.
And I love that your school puts this emphasis on the arts. This is something that we talked about before we started filming. So much of our culture puts an emphasis, and I understand why they put a lot of emphasis on science and mathematics. But I think there's a humanizing component as well to the arts that students need to understand as well. And it sounds like that's what you're bringing out in your students, which is really awesome to see and hear about as well.
Yeah, I think the arts, I mean, anyone will tell you, well, maybe not anyone, but a lot of people would say, sure, the arts are important. I mean, it's just part of, it's harder to justify in that, I can't say that, your ability to analyze a film is going to be part of your job someday, and this is going to be important. Like, but at the same time, it's just part of creating, I think, a whole human being in a lot of ways. And just the idea of sense making. I think it's kind of the same argument you'd have for social studies. It's sort of between science and art in a lot of ways, right? It's the ability, you pick up skills that allow you to make sense of your world and connect things together one to the other. So if you can at least walk away from a film studies class or an art class or English or whatever, then I think, or drama, then I think you're doing, we're doing the world a service, a good service.
Yeah. So, in addition to putting this emphasis on the arts and helping your students out, it's not just like you sit in this classroom behind a desk and tell them to do these things, then you never venture out on your own. You have this podcast, which is really awesome. The link to your podcast is going to be below in the description of this video here. That I mean, honestly, I love it. Anytime a new episode comes out or LB and I have a long drive, I'm like, hey, pull up like this episode from Shane's podcast for me. And we'll listen to it the whole drive. Oh, wow. I love it. What went into designing that? Maybe, give yourself a shameless plug here about it.
A shameless plug. I'm not very good at that, but I mean, I do it because I love it. That's the bottom line. It's just a pile of fun. I started it by accident, sort of. It started out as an ed tech podcast because our school was going BYOD.
Okay.
So, it started out named Biodcast, which is just terrible. awful name. But we kicked out about 7 episodes that first year, just talking with everyone in our building about just all the different aspects of tech and sort of, making it ubiquitous in our school. But it felt kind of tapped out after that first year. So then we decided I decided I would just keep going, just rename it Ed. And just kind of the idea there being that it's just short, it's pithy, it's casual. And that's really how I wanted the Ed to be, is just a really casual conversation. Maybe not useless. I still want it to be useful, but so then I started doing one a month with coworkers in my room, which eventually evolved into what I call the check-in now. And then started doing interviews with people in my building, and ran out of people. So I started going elsewhere and bumped it up to twice a month for the interviews, and then 3 times a month. And now I'm up to weekly. So yeah, it just kind of rolled forward. I had no plan for it. I'd like to say I did, but I am not a planner. I'm not. So, but I love doing it. I love to connect with everybody, all the different educators all over the world, really.
Yeah, you've had some pretty big hitters on that show too. Dave Burgess, right? And
yeah, that was fun. Yeah, he was a pile of fun. And I mean, I had Beth Hoof on my show really near the beginning.
Oh, okay.
And I had no idea she'd written this book. Like, this is how new I was to the whole world. Like, and I'm like, oh, she wrote one of the pirate books. Oh my gosh. So, but she was great. And but every teacher has got something to share. And that's what's so great. Whether you've got, whether you're a big hitter or whether you are just getting started. I mean, I've done some stuff with student teachers, which is great. So it really doesn't matter.
I love that you do that too. Those are some of my favorite interviews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, they're fun. They're fun. It's like, because they're just so new, and you get to oh, so what do you think? And
they'd have no idea yet, right?
Yeah, it's like, your soul hasn't been crushed yet. Your spirit still is, full of optimism. So yeah, it's fun.
So if there's a teacher out there that they're thinking, man, I'd really love to start a podcast sometime, what would be like a tip or two that you'd give them as they're starting to plan it all out?
Well, I've heard other people ask this question, so I'm trying to walk the line between originality and but not being so original that I'm just useless. I don't know. Just I guess find a service that will actually handle all the back end for you. Like, I use Podbean because it's easy.
Yes.
So I'm sure there's a dozen other services out there that do that. So that would be the first thing. Second is just get a decent microphone. I know that it's, when you're starting out, you just want to kind of do whatever, but just get a decent microphone. Cause man, I listen to some podcasts or try to that I just have bad sound quality, and it hurts. It hurts to listen to it. It's hard to listen to it because you're straining, and it takes energy. And I'd rather, if you get a decent mic, the one you're using, which one is that?
That's the eBay Cobblestone. And it was only $24 on Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. So buying is just about zip. I mean, honestly, if you can't spring for $24, use your phone and hold it close to your mouth, and you'll get really good sound off of that. You can do stuff like that. I think Anchor does a whole podcasting package, mobile podcasting package, on your phone for free right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So you can just do that and get some pretty decent sound quality as long as you're in a quiet space. Like me, this is on the other side of my camera, the guest room with the bed and everything. So it's the quietest room in the house. Yeah. And then honestly, beyond that, just be, just have fun, be shameless about it. Just get used to hearing the sound of your own voice. Yeah. Honestly, I could keep going. I could list off a million things, but the big thing for me is, just get someone to handle the fiddly bits for you, and get a good microphone.
Yeah. I like those too as well. I use Podbean as well. You know that. And then, whenever I first started my podcast, it was me pacing in my basement, talking into my phone back and forth. And then after a while, I thought, man, this is really bad audio quality.
It wasn't too bad though. I've heard way worse. That was actually decent.
Yeah, so I was like, I need something else here, or else I am toast. I'm done for, and this is going to burn in flames. Yeah. Yeah. So Shane, we've talked about your role in education. I love this film class that you teach and everything about that, and I always love whenever you share about that. We talked about the film festival, which sounds incredible. And we've talked about briefly some podcasting tips for teachers. We're actually starting to get to the end of our show.
Okay.
So this is where we do the viewers' favorite part of the show, the high fives. These are
Yep.
5 questions totally unrelated to education, just so people get to know you a little better, okay?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
First one.
Yeah.
Skydiving or scuba diving?
Skydiving. That was easy.
Have you ever been?
No, I want to though.
Yes. Always sounds awesome.
Water terrifies me.
Second one. This one might be a little bit of a tough one.
Mhm.
Fortnite or fidget spinners?
Fortnite. There's a discernible purpose to those.
Yeah. 3. Type of laundry detergent that you use?
Ecos from Costco. It's large and cheap.
Yeah. Anything from Costco. That was actually my job through college. I was one of the free sample people.
Yeah.
That was how I paid my way and paid the bills.
Oh, congrats.
Fourth one. Spray on or rub on sunscreen?
Oh, spray on all the way. I got kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 2 and 4-year-old, it's like 10 minutes to rub it on, or like 30 seconds. Shh, done.
Do you go to the beach much?
No. I'm in Canada, man.
Yeah.
although next week I am going to the beach.
Yeah, and I was thinking, you're connected with Erica DeRosie, right?
Sorry?
Erica DeRosie, are you connected with her on Twitter?
I don't know if I am.
Okay. She is awesome. She's in Montreal, and she's like, yeah, there's like a beach not too far from my house. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that in Canada.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're never far from one, usually like an hour drive at the most.
Oh, okay.
There's like a bajillion lakes in Alberta. So, yeah. Not hard to find a beach, but hard to find like a nice beach.
Last one.
Yeah.
Which superpower is better, flying or invisibility?
Oh, that's like the worst question ever, man. No one can answer that. Nobody. There's like,
That's why these are the questions people need answers to, Shane.
I've seen like whole big like YouTube videos devoted to that very question. I'm gonna go with flying though, because I've had some really sweet flying dreams in my life, and I love that feeling. So I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah. Flying is what makes me most feel like a superhero, I think, or would make me feel most like a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
Obi and I are into watching like all those shows on Netflix, and
oh yeah.
It's like if they can't fly, they're at a big disadvantage. So,
and invisibility, I don't know. I mean, other than like being a creep, I can't imagine much of a purpose for it. So maybe I lack imagination. I don't know.
Yeah, I got nothing for you either for that. Okay, so Shane, thanks for being on the show. Are there any final words or any other things you want to talk about before we sign off for the day?
You know, man, I'm good. This has been a nice breezy conversation. I really enjoyed this.
Good. Well, hey, all of you, if you are not connected with Shane already on Twitter, his Twitter handle is going to be in the description of the video below. Also, be sure to check out his podcast, the Ed Podcast. Without a doubt, one of my favorite podcasts ever. If you have enjoyed what you've seen on the show today, please be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel below. And if you or somebody you know is interested in being on Edusations, you can very easily sign up by going to philstrunk.com/contact. Thank you all so much. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.